I've used Airbnb for years and never had a real problem. That's why this still bothers me. I keep replaying it in my head, wondering if I overreacted. But every time I think about that weekend in Colorado, I feel the same tightness in my chest. I'm 28, and last fall I booked a solo trip to a small mountain town about 2 hours outside Denver. I just wanted a quiet weekend to hike, read, and disconnect. The listing I found had almost perfect reviews. Entire place. Private entrance. That was important to me. I didn't want shared space. I didn't want to feel watched. The host's name was Mark. His profile photo looked normal. Middle-aged guy, friendly smile. He messaged me within minutes of booking. Thanks for choosing my place. Let me know if you need anything at all. He sent detailed check-in instructions the day before I arrived. Keypad entry. Code would activate at 4 p.m. When I pulled up, the house looked exactly like the photos. Modern, clean, large windows facing the mountains. It was slightly isolated, but there were other houses a short distance away. Not completely remote. I punched in the code. The smart lock beeped and turned green. The door unlocked smoothly. Inside, everything looked spotless. Neutral furniture, clean kitchen, a soft scent of something floral in the air. There was a staircase leading down to what looked like a finished basement, but at the bottom of the stairs was a solid door with a small sign on it. Storage. No guest access. I didn't think much of it. Plenty of hosts lock off parts of their homes. Mark messaged me about 15 minutes after I arrived. Just checking in. Everything okay? I replied yes. An hour later, another message. Heat working fine? It gets cold at night. I told myself he was just attentive. Still, it felt a little excessive. That first evening was calm. I cooked dinner, watched a show, and went to bed around midnight. The house was quiet in that mountain town way. No traffic noise, just wind ag against the windows. Sometime after 2 a.m., I woke up. At first, I didn't know why. Then I heard it. A faint thud, like a soft footstep downstairs. I lay still, listening. The house creaked slightly, but older houses do that. I told myself it was just the temperature dropping. Then I heard another sound, a soft mechanical beep, clear and sharp in the silence. I grabbed my phone and checked the time. 2:17 a.m. The beep sounded exactly like the smart lock at the front door. My stomach tightened. I waited for the sound of the door opening. Nothing. Maybe it was a system glitch, I told myself. Maybe the battery warning or something. I didn't go downstairs. I didn't want to seem paranoid. Eventually, I fell back asleep. In the morning, I checked my phone notifications. There was one from the Airbnb app. Host accessed property. That was the exact wording. I stared at it for a long time. Accessed property? What did that even mean? Did it mean he checked something remotely or physically entered? I opened the app, but there were no additional details. I walked downstairs slowly. The front door was locked. Nothing looked disturbed. But as I passed the basement door, something caught my eye. The handle looked slightly angled downward. I was almost sure it had been perfectly straight the night before. I stood there staring at it, feeling ridiculous. You're imagining things, I told myself. I messaged Mark. Hey, quick question. I got a notification saying, host accessed property. What does that mean? He replied quickly. Oh, that's just the system refreshing. I didn't come by. Everything's private. The word private stood out to me. That afternoon, I went for a hike. When I came back, I walked around the outside of the house for the first time. That's when I noticed something. On the far side of the house, partially hidden by a fence and bushes, there was another door, a second entrance. It wasn't shown in the listing photos. I felt a wave of unease. I went back inside and pulled up the listing again. I scrolled through the reviews carefully. Most were glowing. Peaceful, private, amazing host. But one older review caught my attention. It mentioned unexpected access and said something about the host entering for storage. I refreshed the page to reread it. It was gone. I thought maybe I had misread it. I scrolled again. Nothing. That night, I double-checked every lock in the house. I pushed a chair against my bedroom door upstairs. I told myself I was being dramatic. Around 1:50 a.m., I heard movement again, clear this time. A door closing downstairs. Not loud, but definite. I froze in bed. Then I heard something else. A slow, careful step. On the stairs. My throat went dry. The steps stopped halfway up. I stared at my bedroom door. The handle moved slightly. Just enough to make a soft click. I felt my whole body go cold. I jumped up quietly and locked the bedroom door. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Mark. Everything okay? I had to grab something from storage. Didn't mean to disturb you. My heart was pounding so hard, I thought I might pass out. He hadn't asked for permission. He hadn't warned me. He had just entered. I didn't reply. I called my best friend and stayed on the phone with her while I shoved my suitcase closed. I didn't care that it was 2 a.m. I didn't confront him. I didn't go downstairs. I just waited until the house was silent again. At 5 a.m., when the sky was barely turning gray, I carried my bag out to my car. My hands were shaking as I typed the keypad code to lock the door behind me. Mark messaged again later that morning. Hope you enjoyed your stay. I contacted Airbnb support as soon as I got to a coffee shop in town. I explained everything. They said the host is allowed access to storage areas if stated in the listing. I went back and checked. The listing had been updated. There was now a small line near the bottom that said, Host may access basement storage if needed. I don't remember seeing that before. Airbnb offered a partial refund. The listing stayed active. A week later, I checked again out of curiosity. New 5-star reviews had been posted. Perfect private getaway. I still think about the way that door handle moved, about the notification, about the second entrance hidden from the photos. Maybe he technically didn't break any rules, but I know one thing. It wasn't private, and I was never alone in that house. I travel to Los Angeles a few times a year for work. I'm in my early 30s, and I usually book hotels, but this time I wanted something quieter. The Airbnb listing said entire private unit, no shared spaces. It looked modern, clean, good reviews, almost all 5 stars. The host's name was Daniel. He messaged me within minutes of booking. Welcome. Let me know if you need anything during your stay. Check-in was simple. Keypad entry. Code activated at 4 p.m. When I arrived, the building looked like a normal apartment complex. Nothing sketchy. There was a small security camera mounted outside the front door, which didn't bother me. That's common. Inside, the apartment matched the photos. White walls, minimal furniture, big window facing the street. A small living room with a couch and TV. Kitchen spotless. I remember thinking it felt almost staged, like no one really lived there. About an hour after I arrived, Daniel messaged again. Everything good so far? I replied yes. Enjoying the living room view? That question made me pause. The window faced a street with a parking lot across from it. Nothing special. I figured he was just making conversation. That night, while lying on the couch watching TV, I noticed something small. Near the smoke detector on the ceiling, there was a faint green light blinking. It was subtle, not constant, just a soft blink every few seconds. I stared at it for a while. Smoke detectors sometimes have indicator lights, I told myself. Still, I couldn't remember ever seeing one blink like that. I ignored it and went to bed. Around midnight, I woke up to a faint clicking sound. Click, pause, click. It sounded like it was coming from the air vent above the bedroom door. Again, I told myself it was the AC system. Los Angeles buildings are old. Things make noise. The next morning, while making coffee, I noticed something else that felt slightly off. The Wi-Fi router was mounted high on a shelf in the living room, angled downward toward the couch. Most routers just sit on a table. This one looked positioned. I stood there staring at it longer than I should have. You're being paranoid, I thought. Later that afternoon, Daniel messaged again. Settling in okay? Yes, I replied. Glad to hear. The lighting in there is great during the day. I hadn't posted anything. I hadn't mentioned the lighting. A small wave of discomfort moved through me. That evening, I decided to check the smoke detector more closely. I grabbed a chair and stood under it. From below, it looked normal, but when I shined my phone flashlight directly at it, I saw something reflective inside the plastic casing, a tiny, circular glint. Like glass. My stomach tightened. I stepped down slowly and felt stupid for even thinking what I was thinking, but I couldn't ignore it. I Googled Airbnb camera policies. It clearly stated indoor cameras were not allowed in private listings. I picked up the chair again and angled my phone differently. This time I saw it more clearly. A tiny lens. I climbed down immediately. My heart was pounding. I started checking the rest of the apartment. I looked at the bookshelf in the corner of the living room. On one shelf, tucked between books, there was a small black device plugged into an outlet adapter. It wasn't listed in the amenities. It wasn't mentioned anywhere. It was facing the couch. My hand started shaking. I unplugged it. Within 30 seconds, my phone buzzed. A message from Daniel. Please don't tamper with devices in the unit. I felt cold all over. He knew. He was watching in real time. I didn't reply. Instead, I grabbed a towel and carefully covered the smoke detector area with it. I didn't remove it. I just blocked it. Another message came through. Those are part of the security system. Please uncover them. Inside the unit, my chest felt tight. I locked myself in the bedroom and pushed a chair against the door. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. I kept trying to rationalize it. Maybe it was legal. Maybe he had disclosed it somewhere small in the listing and I missed it. I reopened the Airbnb app and scanned the listing carefully. There was no mention of indoor monitoring devices. None. At around 3 a.m., I heard the keypad at the front door beep. The same sound it made when I first entered. My body froze. Then I heard a soft mechanical voice from the lock. Incorrect code. A pause. Then another beep. Another incorrect code attempt. I stared at the bedroom door. My phone vibrated. The Airbnb app showed a notification. Failed entry attempt. I felt like I was going to throw up. Someone was physically trying to get in. I called Airbnb support immediately. I whispered so whoever was outside couldn't hear me. The representative sounded half asleep. I explained everything quickly. The cameras, the messages, the keypad attempts. She told me to leave the property if I felt unsafe. I didn't sleep after that. I stayed awake in the locked bedroom until sunrise. When the sky started turning gray, I opened the door quietly and checked the apartment. The front door was still locked. I grabbed my suitcase and left without sending Daniel another message. He didn't message me again either. Airbnb refunded 2 of the 3 nights. They said they would investigate. A month later, I checked the listing out of curiosity. It was still active. New reviews had been posted. Beautiful private stay. Very secure. I still think about that green blinking light. I think about how quickly he noticed when I unplugged the device. I think about the keypad beeping at 3 a.m. Maybe he never actually got inside. Maybe it was just him testing the code remotely. But I know what I saw in the ceiling, and I know he was watching. My girlfriend and I booked the cabin because we wanted quiet. It was late October, and we found this listing in rural Oregon that looked perfect. The photos showed a small wooden cabin surrounded by tall trees, mist hanging in the background. The description said, "Entire cabin, private, no neighbors nearby." That line was what sold us. The host, whose name was Eric, messaged right after we booked, "Welcome. You'll love the peace and quiet out here. Let me know if you need anything." Check-in was through a lockbox hanging beside the front door. The drive there took us nearly 40 minutes off the main highway. The road got narrower and darker the deeper we went into the woods. By the time we arrived, it was just us, the trees, and complete silence. The cabin looked exactly like the photos. Warm lights glowing through the windows. A small porch. Everything felt cozy. Inside, it smelled like fresh wood and something faintly like pine cleaner. Large windows faced the forest. No houses in sight, just endless trees. There was a small hallway leading to the bedroom and bathroom. Across from the hallway was a solid wooden door with a small sign screwed into it that read, "Owner Storage, no guest access." We didn't think much of it. Plenty of Airbnb hosts lock off closets or storage areas. Eric messaged again about an hour after we arrived. "Everything good? Heat working fine?" We said yes. He seemed friendly, attentive. That first night felt peaceful. We cooked dinner, played a board game, and listened to the wind outside. Around midnight, we went to bed. At some point during the night, I woke up. At first, I thought it was just the sound of trees moving in the wind. Then I heard something else, a soft thump, like something being set down gently. It came from somewhere down the hallway. I stayed still, listening. Another faint sound followed. Almost like a shift of weight, I nudged my girlfriend and whispered, "Did you hear that?" She listened for a few seconds and shook her head. Probably the house settling. Cabins creak, I told myself. Wood expands and contracts. Eventually, we fell back asleep. The next morning, everything looked normal. The storage door was still shut. No visible changes. That afternoon, we noticed the Wi-Fi went out for about 5 minutes. When it came back, I joked that maybe we were too deep in the woods for reliable internet. That night, things changed. Around 1:30 a.m., we both woke up at the same time. There was a faint glow under the storage door, just for a second. Then it disappeared. I sat up in bed. "Did you see that?" I whispered. She nodded slowly. We both stared at the bedroom doorway. The hallway light was off. The cabin was dark except for moonlight through the windows. Then we heard it. A slow creak, like someone shifting their weight on wooden floorboards. The sound came from the hallway. I got up quietly and stepped into the doorway of our bedroom. The hallway was empty. The storage door looked normal, but something felt different. The air felt heavy. I walked closer to the storage door and put my ear near it. Silence. Then, very faintly, what sounded like a whisper. I froze. It was too quiet to make out words. But it wasn't the wind. I stepped back immediately. "You heard that too, right?" my girlfriend asked. I nodded. We didn't sleep much after that. The next day, we pulled up the Airbnb listing again, comparing the photos to the layout we were in. That's when I noticed something odd. The floor plan photo showed the storage room as a small square at the back of the cabin. But based on where the walls actually sat, that room seemed larger than the photo suggested. We measured the hallway by steps. The dimensions didn't match. That evening, I decided to walk around the outside of the cabin before it got dark. At the back of the property, partially hidden by trees, I saw something that made my stomach drop. A second door. It blended into the back wall of the cabin and didn't have a porch or light. Just a plain wooden door with a keypad. It wasn't shown anywhere in the listing photos. I stared at it for a long time. When I went back inside, I didn't tell my girlfriend immediately. I didn't want to scare her if I was overthinking. But that night, around 3 a.m., we both heard it clearly. A door closing inside the cabin. Not the wind, not the trees. A door. We sat up in bed instantly. Then came slow footsteps in the hallway. Deliberate. Quiet. The bedroom doorknob moved slightly. Not violently. Just a slow, careful turn. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst out of my chest. We both jumped up and pushed the dresser in front of the bedroom door. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely move it. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A message from Eric. "Everything okay? I forgot to mention I sometimes access the storage if I need supplies." I stared at the screen. Forgot to mention, at 3 a.m., I didn't reply. We didn't open the door. We stayed silent and waited. After what felt like an hour, the cabin became quiet again. At 5:30 a.m., when the sky started turning gray, we moved the dresser and ran to our car. We didn't pack neatly. We just threw everything into bags and left. Eric never apologized. He never explained why he needed access in the middle of the night. When we contacted Airbnb support, they said hosts are allowed to access locked areas if disclosed in the listing. We checked the listing again a few days later. The description had been updated. There was now a small line that read, "Owner may access storage area during stay if necessary." We are certain that wasn't there before. The listing is still active. New reviews keep appearing. Perfect private getaway. Total peace and quiet. I still think about that second door in the back of the cabin, about the whispering behind the storage wall, about the doorknob turning slowly in the middle of the night. Maybe he never technically broke the rules, but we were told it was private, and someone else had a way in.